Hello, I'm Greg Hartjes, Superintendent for the Appleton Area School District. Thank you for joining me for this second video on school finance, where I'm going to answer the question, what impact did the governor's 400-year veto have on property taxes? This is a question that I've received often over the last month as property tax bills have come out, and also as the media has covered this veto and what it meant for property taxpayers. So let me start with some background information about how school districts receive their allocation of funding from the state and local property taxes. And it's done by a per pupil number. And so you see this number here, $11,783. That is our funding amount per student last school year, 24-25. We then take that number and it gets multiplied by the number of students that we had last year. So roughly 15,000 students. That gives us our revenue amount, and the state is going to cover most of that revenue amount. What they don't cover then has to go to local property taxes. Now, every 2 years, the state decides on whether this number is going to stay the same or if it's going to increase. And in the last 2-year budget, that's the 23 to 25 budget, went up $325 per year. Again, this year went up $325, and it will next year as well. Now, that's something that we're always anxious to see as a school district. So we wait patiently for the state budget to get finalized because we're hoping that the increase to this number is enough to cover our inflationary increases. Unfortunately, over the last 17 years, that has not been the case. This number has gone up, or it stayed the same in some years, but it hasn't matched inflation. So that's the background. Now, here's what it meant for this year. And again, you're hearing a lot about the veto, and you're hearing a lot about $325. What happened is Governor Evers was able to use his veto power to have a $325 increase, not just for the last 2 years and this year and next year, but for 400 years. And a lot of people feel differently about that. But the reality is a $325 increase this year, when you divide it by this 11,783, it's a 2.8% increase. Inflation this year was 2.95%. So it's a number that a lot of people are talking about, but in reality, it is less than inflationary increases that all school districts are facing. The second thing that I want to point out is that as public schools across the state, every school got the same increase of $325 per student. But I want you to look over here in this chart on the right-hand side. Private schools, you can see these numbers are not typos. In 23-24, private schools on the voucher system, so that's Catholic schools and Lutheran schools here in Appleton, they received $2,121 increase if a student was in K-8. High school students, they saw a $3,342 increase. Now, these increases were significant, and they were done to catch up to public schools. So now a student that goes to either Fox Valley Lutheran or Xavier High School actually receives more revenue than if that same student would go to an Appleton Area School District high school. Now, in the years that followed, last year, public schools again went up $325 per student. Private schools went up $344. This year, you can see $325 again for public schools, almost double that, $640 per student. And then you can see what next year is going to be. Now, all of these costs are paid for by local property taxpayers. So you are paying all of these costs, whereas public schools are split between the state and local property taxes. But what I've not heard when the media has covered the 325 is the increase that has gone to private schools over the last 2 years, this year and next year. All right, that's what I wanted to share. Look forward to future videos around school finance as we lead up to our referendum on April 7th. Thank you.